Hello my loves, it's Charlie and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I've been reading during lockdown. So even though we're in a pandemic, it's crazy and it's really bad, people are dying and it's really scary, and it just feels like the world is ending, honestly, and my mind has exploded a bit. So much bad stuff is going on in the world, and sometimes it's a bit too much information. But one good thing that has come out of lockdown is the fact that we've been at home for a really long time, and I feel like it's given the majority of us, I know that some people have been working all throughout lockdown, the time to reflect and to kind of go back to the things that we enjoyed or take up new hobbies. And for me, a big thing was reading. So at uni, I feel like I don't get the time to read for enjoyment, which is really sad. Like I really miss reading for pleasure, and I don't feel like I had enough time at uni to do that, because I felt bad, because I felt like every time I read something for my enjoyment, I felt this deep guilt inside my heart that I should be reading for an essay or for a seminar or something like that. So I've been really happy to take up reading again, and I've surprisingly read quite a lot. Like this might not be very much for some people, but for me, because I haven't been able to in like the last 3 years at university, but like this is such a lot. So I thought I'd show you some of my favorites and some of the books that I have been reading. So first up, what better one to start with, especially during lockdown, during Corona times, is What a Time to Be Alone. This is by eggerue. I'm really sorry if I mess up the names. But yeah, she is a black British woman, and she is also known as the Slumflower on Instagram. You should definitely go follow her. I love her. And she's responsible for the Saggy Boobs Matter movement. So definitely one to follow on Instagram and one to read. This book is honestly a godsend, I'd say. This book, as she says herself, is a guide to why you are already enough. And it's full of such amazing words of wisdom. Chidera is so wise beyond her years. I'm so astounded that like she has so much knowledge. I feel like this book will carry me through life, and it's one that I will go back to time and time again for when I'm feeling like a bit down or unsure of myself or a bit lost in life. So she splits the book into 3 parts, so you, them and us, and it just talks about how to feel empowered in yourself when you are alone. Take yourself out on dates, go and do stuff that you want to do no matter about other people. It also talks about how to navigate or actually understand the toxicity in your relationships that you may not have known were present. Genuinely an amazing book if you're on the path of self-love and figuring out your self-worth, or you've come out of a bad relationship or a toxic household and you really just need kind of like a best friend and a helping hand to get you through it. And I feel like this book is really perfect for that. If that's what you're going through, you should definitely go and read it. Buy it for your friends, give it to them as a gift. On that note, her second book, How to Get Over a Boy. Now, I'm not currently getting over a boy, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go read this even if you're not. I'm still currently reading this, but so far I love it. It focuses more on those love relationships, particularly between a man and a woman, and really just dissects the power dynamic within relationships, and you should put yourself first, and that relationships aren't the be all and end all. You are perfectly capable and whole on your own. You don't need a man to fulfill that. So this I would really recommend. If you're getting over a boy, definitely, but even if you're not. Next up, we have Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I'm really sorry again if I got that name wrong. This novel is really fascinating because it centres around a topic that I'm not very aware of, and I would definitely look more into it after reading this. So this is set in 1960s Nigeria in the middle of a civil war, and focuses on the lives of 3 people during this war. So we have eggerue, who is a poor boy from the village who goes to work for a university professor. Then we have Alana, who is the partner of the university professor. And finally we have Richard, who is a white man who is the lover of Alana's twin sister, Kani. This book so beautifully encaptures the horrifics of war while talking about the lives and relationships of people during that war. The end of the book kind of leaves it on a bit of a cliffhanger, and we don't really know where all the characters end up. The novel really shows what life is like for individual people and how they carry on throughout the war, despite coming across some seriously traumatic things.
For some reason, I just stopped talking about this book, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think I just had like a little brain fart or something, you know. But anyway, I would definitely recommend this book to you guys because it's a truly gripping novel about love and life during war, and serves as a great introduction to the Nigerian Civil War of the 60s. Other than that, it's also written by a brilliant woman of colour, and I will definitely be reading this book again, and will go and read her other books, so I think you should too. Go ahead, do that. Enjoy. And now back to the previously scheduled programme.
Next we have one that feeds my classics soul. Next is Circe by Madeline Miller. So this is a fictional telling of the story of the goddess Circe. Circe is the goddess that Odysseus comes across on his journeys on the way home. This story is a retelling of that experience and of the life of Circe from her point of view, and her motives for doing things and her backstory. I thought was really cool and interesting, and was a really fun read too. So definitely I would recommend this for those of you who enjoy mythology. This one, I adore this book. So this is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste. I think that's how you say it. This book made me cry. It was like, this is such a beautifully written novel. But let's take it back to the beginning. So basically, this book is, it starts off with this family, and so important that this is a book about a mixed race family. Important for me because being mixed race, it's interesting to see other experiences of it, even though this is obviously fiction. And also important that it shows that a mixed race family who isn't just black and white. I feel like when people think of mixed race, they usually just tend to think of black and white mixes, whereas this is Chinese and white. So it centers around this family. The mother is white and the dad is Chinese, and they have 3 children, and it's set in the 70s. At the beginning of the book, we find out that the middle child, Lydia, is found dead in a lake. The way the book is written is that it follows the stories of the individual characters, different family members, prior to Lydia's death and also after Lydia's death. The moments that led up to Lydia's death, the reasons perhaps why she was found dead, whether it's a suicide or not. And I just think it was just so well written and really deep and heartfelt, and it just broke my heart, to be honest with you. It actually just broke my heart, and I feel like this is the kind of story that will stay with me for a long time. Yeah, I really feel like this is one that will stick with me forever, and I think she's honestly a brilliant writer, and I'm pretty sure this was her debut novel, and for a debut novel, insane. Her other book, Little Fires Everywhere, is just as amazing. I just have to say, like, she lived up to her first book and more. But I really like how she writes. So she starts off with this big event that happens. So in this one, Richardson family and the Warrens. So the Mrs. Richardson wakes up to find her house is burning, and we see the events that led up to the house burning, who did it, why it happened, and this link between the I clearly have a speech impediment which just jumps out when it wants to, when I try to speak. But anyway, she wakes up to the house burning down, and we see the links between the Richardson family and the Warrens. It takes a real good look at family dynamics and the ways in which the expectations of parents can have such a detrimental effect on the children. And I felt like this with Everything I Never Told You. There was an emphasis on parental expectations and how it can really affect the outcome of children and the people they become. But yeah, I don't want to go too much into the story because it's a really good one. I guarantee that this is a really thrilling read, and such a brilliant author. You have to go read it. Next up is this book, Remembered, by Yvonne battle-felton. This book looks into the racial tensions at the beginning of the 20th century in America. It starts with a young black man in 1910 in Philadelphia driving a streetcar into a shop that says no coloureds allowed, and he ends up in hospital in a coma and likely about to die. As he's lying in hospital, his mother, Spring, comes to visit and decides that she needs to tell him her story and his story about where they come from and all the things that have led up to this point. And as she tells this story, we find out that her mother, Ella, was kidnapped as a 12-year-old and taken to work on a plantation. This book is a hard one to read. It obviously talks about the absolute monstrosities of slavery, and the book stresses the importance on handing down the stories of slavery to the next generation, so that your children, your grandchildren know where you come from, how you got to this point, the struggles that you went through. And I feel like that is important in all life. There's a lot more to this book, but I don't want to give too much away. I just think it's very haunting. Haunting is the key word there too. Yeah, it's really good, really hard-hitting and at times difficult to read, but definitely worth the read too. Along those themes is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison is one of my favourite writers. I adore her book, Beloved. You should read it if you haven't already. And I don't think I have ever been touched more by a book so deeply. This is just as good as well. So, and this is particularly important for understanding more about everything with the Black Lives Matter movement. So this novel is about a poor black family in the 1940s in America, and focuses on the young girl of this family and how she, more than anything, wishes that she had blue eyes and lighter skin. And I think nothing more really needs to be said about that, and how sad that is as a reality, and a reality today. So much self-loathing because you aren't the typical Western standard of beauty. You are not the ideal type, the ideal look, and obviously that is so wrong, and I wish we lived in a world where that was not the case, and we're trying so hard to get to that point. I think this is a great read if you want to learn more about the experience of a young black girl in the 1940s. I feel like sadly not much has changed. And with that, that's the end of the video. They're all the books I've been reading during lockdown. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.